Welcome to Biography Central. You are listening to Life of Sri Ramakrishna, a complete biography. Chapter 5, On the Threshold of Youth. These changes in the Chatterjee family left an indelible impression on the emotional mind of Gadadhar. The death of his brother's wife, the unkindness of fortune, the diminishing income, all these strengthened his conviction as to the fleeting nature of worldly enjoyments. Even at that tender age, he was disgusted with the world. His dislike for academic education increased. He found that men ran after worldly knowledge because it would help them to earn money or to gain prestige, the transitory nature of which was but too evident to him. He resolved to pass a life of meditation, prayer, and worship, and though he still performed the routine work of the day, the chief item of which was helping his aged mother in her household duties, he spent a great portion of his time in worshipping Raghavir or in reading passages from the holy books. We have already said that the neighboring women were greatly attracted by Gadadhar's amiable character. After the departure of Ramkumar for Calcutta, the boy, owing to the nature of the duties he took upon himself, had to spend much time indoors, which afforded them greater opportunities of enjoying his company. They thronged Chandra's house after the day's work and grouped themselves about the boy, hoping to hear him sing or recite some holy text. So persistent were they that presently those things became part of his daily duty. In those days, many Vaishnavas and Bols lived at Kamarpukar. Gadadhar learnt their devotional songs by heart and would entertain his mother's visitors by singing them, as well as enacting some of the village dramas, he himself taking the different parts. He had a wonderful knack of imitating voices, especially women's, and was a good mimic as well. When he found his mother or any of her friends in low spirits, he would cheer them up with his impersonations. There could be no trace of melancholy in the presence of this sprightly, ingenuous boy. The companionship soon deepened into closeness. The ladies knew of the extraordinary circumstances attending the birth of Gadadhar and were aware of his great spiritual fervor and unflinching devotion. His simplicity, uprightness, piety, and unbounded faith in the gods charmed their heart. Aged women like Prasanamai regarded him as the boy Gopala. Younger ones thought he was endowed with some of the characteristics of Sri Krishna. His great naturalness and perfect adaptability made them forget his sex, and they had no hesitation in confiding their secrets to him. His nature at this time became amazingly feminine, doubtless due to his study of the folk dramas and lyrics of the Vaishnavas, which deal mostly with the life of Sri Krishna and his relations with the cowherd boys and the milkmaids of Vrindavan. The pathos underlying the attraction felt by the gopis for their beloved cowherd friend, the intensity of that love which, as it were, consumed them bit by bit, the pangs of separation, the supreme felicity at the reunion, and lastly, the great idealism at the back of these episodes made a lasting impression upon the mind of Gadadhar. Often, in his yearning for God, he would transmute himself, so to speak, into a milkmaid of Vrindavan, forgetting his real self. The pious young women of the village, who were mostly devotees of Vishnu, reminded him of the gopis of Vrindavan, and therefore he sought their company. He knew that the gopis were able to realize Krishna as their husband and feel the bliss of his eternal reunion, because they were women. He, in his eagerness for the same goal, would regret that he was born a man and was inclined to think that his masculine form was a great barrier separating him from his beloved. If he were to be born again, he would like to be a young widow in a pious Brahmin family, who would only think of Krishna as her husband. With barely enough to maintain herself, she would have a milch cow, a spinning wheel, and a plot of land about her, but to grow vegetables. An old woman would act as her guardian. She would prepare various sweets from the milk of her cow and preserve them for her beloved. After finishing the day's work, she would sit by the wheel and, while spinning, give vent to her feelings in a rapturous song. Then, in the mellowed light of the evening, Sri Krishna would enter the hut stealthily as the cowherd boy and take those sweets. Thus would his fancy wander. This ideal of Gadadhar was not literally fulfilled, but he realized Sri Krishna in this very life in the form he wished, as we shall see afterwards. While enacting female parts in the play, he would dress himself accordingly, and his representation was perfect. Often, Out of fun, he would go in the guise of a girl to the halder puker, carrying a water jug after the fashion of the country women. And though he walked with people who had known him since birth, they scarcely recognized him. Sādhanās Pine, whose house was close to Kutharams, had 7 sons and 8 daughters with him at Kamar Pukur, even after their marriage. This family lived in terms of great intimacy with Chandra. Gadadhar spent long hours there reciting stories from the Puranas. Many of the village women visiting with the ladies of the house had the opportunity of hearing these recitations and of enjoying Gadadhar's boyish pranks. A neighbor of Sādhanās named Durgadas Pine was a strict advocate of the Purta system. He boasted that no masculine outsider had ever penetrated his women's quarters. One day, Gadadhar overheard him and told him that by education and devotion to God alone could the chastity of women be preserved, not by confining them within a zenana, a system to restrict the women inside the house and away from men, an unfortunate consequence of being ruled by the Mohammedan rulers in the past. Besides, he added, I can easily gain access to yours. Durgadas challenged the boy to do it. All right, we shall see, he replied and went away smiling. One evening, Durgadas was chatting with a number of friends when a poorly dressed woman, her face hidden under a veil and with a basket on her arm, came and stood before them. She introduced herself by saying that she belonged to a weaver family of an adjacent village and had come to the market to sell yarn. Her friends had all gone home, leaving her behind, and as it was impossible for her to return alone at that hour, she prayed that she might be allowed to pass the night in his family. Durgadas asked the woman a few questions and then said, All right, go inside and speak to the ladies. The woman expressed her gratitude and went inside. The women, finding her young and of great simplicity, invited her to stay the night and gave her something to eat. She seated herself nearby and while partaking of the refreshments, scrutinized every room in the house and joining now and then in the conversation. Some 3 hours passed in this way. In the meantime, Chandra missed Gadadhar. When some hours elapsed and he was still absent, she became very anxious and sent Rameshwar in search of him. Rameshwar went first to Sādhanās' house, for it was there that the boy spent most of his time. But he was not there. He sought him elsewhere, calling his name aloud as he went. As he passed the house of Durgadas, a voice from the women's quarters answered, I am coming, brother. The women were amazed to find that the stranger was none other than Gadadhar in disguise. Durgadas, thus outwitted, was at first annoyed but later entered into the fun of the situation and congratulated the boy on his success. The ice being thus broken, the ladies of this family too began to frequent Sādhanās Pine's house when Gadadhar was there. And when he would fall into trances during the devotional songs, they would worship him, thinking that Krishna or Gauranga was manifesting in that pure body. Later, they presented him with a gold flute and a complete outfit for both male and female parts. The women of the Pine family cherished his memory during their whole lives. And when, in 1893, some of the monastic disciples of Sri Ramakrishna paid a visit to Kamar Pukur, Rukmini, one of Sādhanās' daughters, then 60 years old, gave the following interesting account of their association with Gadadhar. You see our house there, a little to the north. It is now in a dilapidated state, and very few members of our family survive. I was then 17 or 18 years of age. Ours was a thriving family. Sādhanās Pine was my father, and we were altogether 17 or 18 sisters and cousins, all of about the same age. Gadadhar used to play with us from his very boyhood. We were therefore very close to him. Even after we had married and come of age, he used to visit our house, and though he had grown up, he had free access to our inner apartments. My father loved him dearly and adored him like his own Ishta. You have so many girls at home, complained some neighbors to my father, and Gadadhar is not young. Why do you allow him to visit your family so frequently? Don't you worry, my father would reply. I know Gadadhar too well to think ill of him. Gadadhar used to recite stories for us from the Puranas as we went about our daily household duties. How can I describe the bliss that we enjoyed in his company? If perchance he missed a day, we became extremely restless, thinking that he might be ill. One of us would go to Chandradevi's on some pretext or other, whilst the others waited at home for news. His every word was a delight to our ears. The days he was unable to be with us we spent in talking of him. Not only did he make an abiding impression on the women of the village, but he influenced the men also by his amiable character and versatile genius. He often joined them in the evening when they congregated for kirtan or to read passages from the Bhagavata or other holy books. There were several such centers in the village. No one in the village could read as he did or explain so lucidly. His fervor, frequent ecstatic moods, melodious voice, and graceful dancing sent a thrill of joy into the hearts of the villagers. And his merriment and jests were enjoyed by all. Though Gadadhar was restless, buoyant, and merry, they were not blind to his wonderful intelligence and deep insight, and he often amazed them with his wisdom. He had the unusual power of seeing everything from a different angle, and was often able to solve questions when the wisest among the men of the village were unable to do so. He never hesitated to say exactly what he meant, which made hypocrites shun his company for fear of exposure. There were some few amongst the villagers who were fortunate enough to be able to recognize his great spiritual potentialities and predicted a great future for him, although not the direction in which he would develop. An instance of this kind has already been narrated in connection with Srinivas. It was about this time that the idea seems to have come to him that he was destined to fulfill some great mission in life. He did not know what, though the realization of God was to him even then the only purpose worthy of consideration. The monastic life had a strong attraction for him. Much as he would have liked to have taken up the begging bowl and renounced everything for the Lord's sake, the thought of the plight of his mother and brothers made him forego his desire. In the struggle between the two ideas, he was powerless to decide and could do nothing but resign himself to the guidance of Raghavir, fully believing that he would show the way out when the time came. His aversion to school was becoming daily more pronounced, and he would have given it up but for his friends there, especially Gaya Vishnu. But a way to leave school without causing distress to anyone unexpectedly presented itself. An amateur dramatic company was formed in the village, and Gadadhar was asked to join it and take the chief roles. As he did not have time for both school and study of the various dramatic presentations, he chose the thing that appealed to him, and was thus able to give up school with a clear conscience. The mango grove of Manik Raja was the place selected for rehearsals. Gadadhar not only played the chief roles, but took upon himself the task of training the other boys. Incidents from the lives of Sri Rama and Sri Krishna were dramatized. From the start, the project was a success. Gadadhar was in his element, and we are told of his frequent trances during the performances. At this time, Gadadhar showed marked talent in painting and clay modeling, though he had had no special training. His powerful concentration and intuitive idealism were great help. He would often surprise professional molders by pointing out inaccuracies in the execution of some delicate part of an image, the eyes, for instance, and would direct them how to set them aright. In his ecstatic moods, he saw various divine forms, and these visions, coupled with his artistic faculty, developed his critical faculty and enabled him to produce figures of great beauty. Gadadhar was now 17 years old, and Ramkumar was finding that he could not manage all his duties in Calcutta alone. Besides teaching in the toll, he had to conduct the worship in a number of families. This increased his work so much that he felt the need of an assistant. On one of his visits to Kamarpukur, he marked Gadadhar's peculiar indifference toward school, and when he learned that Gadadhar had given up his studies and was roaming the village with his friends and companions, he decided, after hurried consultation with his mother and Rameshwar, to take him to Calcutta, where he might supervise his studies and have his help in his household duties. Gadadhar readily agreed to this proposal, and on an auspicious day, he set out for Calcutta with the blessings of Raghavir and his mother. As he bade farewell to Kamarpukur and all its happy memories extending over a period of 17 years, his heart was overpowered with grief. The future, with all its undisclosed possibilities, lay before him, and he was making a step forth into the unknown, leaving behind the security of home and the love of all his childhood friends, to say nothing of the aching void in the hearts of the men and women to whom he had come to mean so much. This, in short, is the first of the 4 great acts in the drama about to unfold itself at Dakshineshwar. To put it differently, it marked, as it were, the first stage of development of a gigantic banyan, the numerous branches of which were destined to afford shelter and comfort to millions of weary travelers in the wilderness of the world. I hope you like this chapter. We need volunteers and sponsors to create content with even better quality and with more variety. If you wish to join this initiative as a volunteer or sponsor, please click the links given in description below. To help us reach more viewers, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Biography Central. Thank you for your time. It means a lot. Namaste.